We are joined by Raghuram Rajan. Thanks very much, Raghuram Rajan, for joining us. Are you worried about your profession being an economist? Because the economy was doing well, really much better growth rate than other developed countries. Europe was admiring and jealous of America. Inflation down to 2%, and it didn't matter to the voter. So are economists going to become less relevant now?
Well, that's the least of my worries.
Right, exactly, actually.
But, I think that there is an underlying truth here, which is that average American doesn't feel that good.
Yeah.
They feel that over the last few years, yes, they have a job, which they usually attribute to themselves. But inflation has been high, and their real wages, the median real wage, hasn't really increased from 2019. So in that sense, there is a feeling that they haven't really benefited uh, for the most part, which seems strange because you have unemployment really low, as you said. The economy is growing, stock prices are at all-time high, yet the average American feels that they've been put upon. The nostalgia goes back to the last days of the Trump administration when they all got big fat checks in the mail. And it seems as if, we were really better then because we had low credit card outstandings. We, had plenty of money, and they attribute it all to Trump. So, I mean, these are simplistic observations. Obviously, there's a lot else going on, but I do think the point you're making is a good one, that somehow all this growth hasn't percolated to the average American.
One point that Ruchir Sharma has just written a paper, the article in the Financial Times, saying that yes, the growth rate has been good, the inflation is down, but most of the benefits have gone to the the richer, middle class and richer section. The poorer half of America has really not benefited. And that's why maybe that the poorer income, the less educated have voted for Trump. Is that a possibility as well? The disparity.
I think that's a 2-decade phenomenon, right?
Right,
Ever since you saw the decline in manufacturing jobs, and you saw the sort of rural America or semi-urban America suffer from the loss of these middle-class jobs. This has been a constant theme. If you remember, Angus Eaton wrote about the deaths of despair. The problem, I think, however, is that in the last year or two, you're seeing actually the lower middle class American do a little better. Wages are exceeding inflation. They're sort of all, anyone who wants a job has a job. So in that sense, the economy is delivering, at least in the recent past. It's just that when you accumulate over the high inflation period, they're seeing that their real wages haven't kept pace, and they're a little angry at that. Probably some nostalgia. This was a big theme in the Trump campaign. Were you better off 4 years ago? And there is a nostalgia for the period when they're locked in at home but have plenty of money and they can buy stuff. And maybe some of that is at play.
Isn't there then a surprise that people who are doing badly are voting for somebody who's promising more tax cuts for the rich? I mean, is there some irony there, or some inability on the part of some people to understand why, you're voting for a guy who's certainly going to spend more on defense? I mean, the Senate Armed Forces man is going to be very right-wing. I mean, he's going to give tax cuts. Now, in fact, Goldman Sachs says that his plan will increase deficit significantly. So more inflation. So what is it that's making the relatively less well-off vote so strongly for Trump?
The cynical view is that they haven't added up the plans. Each one sees a little bit of it. A lot of them see a quote-unquote successful businessman accompanied by the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, and they think somehow the policies will work out. Again, nostalgia for the past, and they're quite willing to overlook the aspects that don't gel with their view saying, oh, he won't do that. So when you think, for example, about tariffs, the immediate effect of 20% across the board tariff, as well as the 60% tariff on China, admittedly, some of these cannot be actually implemented. Some of them will be unwound in negotiations. Maybe some of this is a negotiation tactic. But in general, he seems quite strongly impelled towards tariffs. And the immediate effect is going to be higher prices for all the stuff that is tariffed, as well as disruption in production. But somehow people aren't taking note of that. Maybe they believe that, yeah, he'll threaten, as he threatened with Mexico and didn't implement in the last term. But he did threaten China, and he did implement. And this time they want to implement tariffs on 10 times, in fact, all of imports. And the disruptive effects can be far larger. So similarly, I mean, think of the attack on immigration, the claim that they will deport enormous numbers instantaneously.
Right.
And his, right-hand man, Stephen Miller, has even prepared the notion of camp to place these apprehended immigrants in. This is a pretty dark view of what could happen.
That could be a very
But
underlying.
if it does happen, labor, which the labor markets have been relatively tight, and it'll make it even tighter, especially for services like hotels, restaurants, and so on.
We have
Has
your
the small businessman taken this into account?